The night air outside St. Anne's Care Center was crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain-soaked pavement and the distant hum of traffic. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered softly, casting a sterile glow across the long, polished corridor. It was just past midnight, the hour when even the most tireless of caretakers moved with quiet reverence, aware that every sound echoed in the stillness. Clara Bennett adjusted the straps of her simple blue uniform, tugging at the pockets that held everything she might need for her long night shift. Her shoes squeaked softly on the linoleum as she walked toward room 7, a private suite on the far end of the floor. The caretaker's badge on her chest read Clara Bennett, but in her heart she was more than a name. She was a lifeline, a voice, and tonight a hopeful bridge between life and the silence that had overtaken one elderly woman. The head nurse, a woman named Margot, had called her aside earlier, her tone crisp but not unkind. "Clara," she said, fixing her gaze on the young caregiver, "you'll be in room 7 tonight. The patient is Mrs. Evelyn Hartwell. She's been mostly unresponsive for months. Her son, he's quite protective. Be careful, but do your job." Clara nodded, a mixture of curiosity and nerves stirring inside her. She had heard of Evelyn Hartwell. Not just any elderly patient. She was a widow of considerable influence, a philanthropist who had quietly shaped the city's social landscape. Her family rarely visited, and the staff whispered of the son, Victor Hartwell, a billionaire who seemed more like a shadow than a man, always present in the periphery, yet never fully stepping into the light. As Clara approached room 7, she paused outside the door, taking a deep breath. This was her calling, the work she had trained for, the path she had chosen even though it came with long nights, low pay, and endless sacrifice. She reminded herself that kindness could sometimes reach places that medicine alone could not. Pushing the door open gently, she found the room dimly lit by a single lamp beside the bed. Evelyn lay there, pale and still, the subtle rise and fall of her chest, the only sign of life beyond the machines that hummed softly around her. Clara's heart contracted at the sight, not fear, but the quiet weight of responsibility. "Good evening, Mrs. Hartwell," Clara whispered, her voice low and soothing. "My name is Clara. I'll be taking care of you tonight." She adjusted the blanket across Evelyn's shoulders, checked the IV lines, and refreshed the water in the small humidifier by the bed. Every motion was careful, deliberate, infused with the kind of respect that comes from seeing another human being as more than a patient or a task. Clara sat in the chair beside the bed, her eyes falling on the small wooden music box she had tucked into her bag. She opened it gently, and a faint, sweet melody began to fill the sterile air. "Moonlit Serenade," she murmured softly, the lullaby she had learned from her own mother when Clara was a girl. It was a song of comfort, of warmth, of home, and tonight, she hoped, it could reach across the invisible walls of Evelyn's mind. As she began to hum along, her voice trembling slightly, something shifted in the quiet. A shadow in the hallway moved. Victor Hartwell, tall, impeccably dressed, had paused outside the door, hidden in the muted light. He had come to check on his mother silently, without alerting the staff, but what he saw through the glass stopped him in his tracks. Clara was leaning close, her voice soft but steady, and Evelyn's chest seemed almost imperceptibly to rise and fall in time with the melody. The scene, the dedication, the gentle care, the absolute focus, stilled Victor in a way he had not experienced in years. He could not explain why he remained, watching the young caregiver sing to his mother, but he knew instinctively that something profound was unfolding. When Clara finished the lullaby, she leaned back slightly, a faint smile touching her lips. "Good night, Mrs. Hartwell," she whispered. The music box continued its soft song, echoing faintly against the walls. Victor exhaled quietly, a part of him shifting as if a long dormant chord had been struck in his chest. The night stretched on, But for Clara, it was no ordinary shift. Every movement, every note, every whisper carried the weight of possibility. An invisible thread connecting two lives in ways neither of them yet fully understood. And neither of them knew that this quiet act of compassion would not only awaken Evelyn, but also change the life of the young caregiver who dared to believe in the power of a song. The city outside slept under the soft glow of streetlights, but inside St. Anne's Care Center, the night hummed with quiet life. Clara Bennett had returned to room 7 after a short break in the staff lounge, her heart still thrumming from the subtle shift she had felt in Evelyn Hartwell's breathing the night before. Every step she took along the polished corridor felt heavier now, not from fatigue, but from anticipation. Something was different tonight, though she could not yet put her finger on it. Pushing open the door, the familiar scent of antiseptic and lavender greeted her. Evelyn lay in the same position, pale, yet somehow more serene. Clara adjusted the lamp, letting its soft, golden light bathe the woman in warmth. Her eyes fell on the music box resting on the small table beside the bed. She opened it carefully, letting the first notes of Moonlit Serenade drift through the air. Clara's voice joined the melody, soft and steady. She had begun to notice a rhythm in Evelyn's breathing, a subtle synchronicity with the tune. Perhaps it was imagination, she thought. Yet the possibility felt too profound to ignore. Every word she sang carried her hope, every note a prayer. From the hallway, a faint shadow lingered. Victor Hartwell had returned, this time closer to the door. His dark eyes tracked Clara's movements, his expression a mixture of skepticism, awe, and something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. He had seen countless caregivers, doctors, and nurses interact with his mother over the months, yet none had ever elicited even a faint sign of response. Clara, unaware of her audience, continued her gentle hum. She adjusted Evelyn's blanket, wiped her hands with a soft cloth, and whispered the smallest details about her day. The tiny mishaps in the staff lounge, the new flowers in the cafeteria, even the pattern of rain outside the window. She spoke as if Evelyn could understand not just the words, but the essence behind them. Then it happened. A faint twitch of Evelyn's fingers brushed the bedspread. Clara froze, heart pounding. Her first instinct was disbelief. Patients in comas sometimes experienced involuntary movements, small spasms with no meaning, but this felt different. There was timing, intention, a connection to the song. Clara leaned closer, whispering softly, "Mrs. Hartwell, can you hear me?" Victor, observing from the shadows, felt his chest tighten. He could not move, could not speak, yet every fiber of his being told him that this young caregiver was doing something extraordinary, something he could not fully understand, something beyond wealth, beyond control, beyond the sterile walls of the hospital. The minutes stretched, each one a heartbeat in suspended time. Clara spoke softly about the world outside the hospital, about the simple joys and small wonders that most people overlooked. She hummed, she whispered, she shared. And Evelyn's fingers twitched again, more deliberately this time. A small, almost imperceptible curl of the hand, as though reaching for the music itself. Clara gasped softly, leaning back in the chair. Could it be real? Could she be witnessing a miracle? She steadied her breath, reminding herself that the world required patience, that miracles often unfolded quietly, subtly, in their own time. Victor remained frozen in the hallway, caught between disbelief and awe. The young caregiver, a stranger, had managed to reach his mother in a way he never could. Her voice, her presence, her unwavering attention seemed to bypass the walls of his mother's silence, slipping into the unspoken corridors of her mind. For the first time in months, he wondered if hope was not just a concept, but a reality waiting to be awakened. As the hours passed, Clara continued her vigil. She sang, She spoke, she hummed, and she observed. Her training had taught her the mechanics of care, the routines of medication and vitals, the science of recovery. But tonight, she relied on something far more powerful: empathy. Suddenly, Evelyn's eyes fluttered, just for a moment. A soft blink that could have been a reflex, yet Clara's heart leapt. She leaned in, voice trembling slightly. "Mrs. Hartwell, I'm here. I promise I will not leave you." Victor's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to enter, to announce himself, to intervene, but something held him back. The scene unfolding before him was intimate, sacred, and he understood instinctively that this was not his place. Not yet. The night deepened. Rain tapped gently against the window, a rhythmic percussion accompanying the music box and Clara's hum. Each note seemed to resonate not just in the room, but in the very walls of the hospital. Clara spoke of her mother, her childhood, of love lost and lessons learned. She spoke as if telling a story to a dear friend, and in the quiet, Evelyn's hands moved again, slightly stronger, curling toward the music box as if recognizing the sound. Victor's eyes brimmed with unshed tears. He had seen millions of dollars move across accounts, corporations rise and fall, yet he had never witnessed anything as profound, as real, as human as this. It was not about wealth, it was about connection. And it was Clara who had built that bridge with nothing but her voice, her presence, and her unwavering belief. Hours passed, yet the night seemed suspended in its own rhythm. Clara noticed every micro-movement, every subtle change. She documented them meticulously in her mental ledger, aware that even the smallest observation could be meaningful. And then, just before dawn, a change. A deeper breath, a shift in posture, a slight tug of Evelyn's hand toward Clara. It was enough to send a shiver down the young caregiver's spine. The impossible had begun to inch toward reality. Victor, watching from the shadows, made a silent promise. Whoever this young woman was, she had earned his trust and his attention. He would ensure she was protected, acknowledged, and, when the time was right, rewarded. The first rays of sunlight began to pierce the horizon, scattering gold across the sterile walls. Clara leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. Tonight had been different. Tonight had carried the weight of possibility. She did not yet know that her life, like Evelyn's, was about to change forever. By the time Clara rose to stretch, she noticed how the early morning light filtered through the blinds, painting soft stripes across the floor. Evelyn remained still, yet every subtle twitch, every imperceptible movement told Clara that something had shifted. It was almost imperceptible, but Clara's heart told her it was real. She stood quietly, checking the monitors. Heart rate steady, vitals within normal ranges, yet something more profound lingered, a rhythm beyond machines. She hummed another lullaby, softer this time, almost as if coaxing a flower to bloom in the dark. "It's okay, Mrs. Hartwell," she whispered. "I'm right here." Victor, still in the shadowed hallway, shifted his weight but did not step forward. Part of him wanted to demand her leave, to protect his mother from the curiosity and unpredictability of hospital staff, but he stayed. He was captivated, entranced, almost hypnotized by the care and love she poured into every motion. Clara, oblivious to her silent observer, continued to recount small, trivial details of her life. The humdrum of commuting, the taste of coffee that never quite warmed her hands, the letters she had written to her mother but never sent. And as she spoke, Evelyn's fingers twitched again, curling slightly as though responding to the rhythm of Clara's voice. Minutes turned into an hour, and Clara noticed a small change in Evelyn's expression, a tiny furrow in her brow, a soft parting of the lips. Small signs, yes, but enough to ignite hope. Clara whispered, "Did you hear that, Mrs. Hartwell? You're trying. I know you're trying." Her eyes glistened, and she brushed a gentle hand across Evelyn's forehead, smoothing a lock of white hair. Victor clenched his fists behind the glass. He had never allowed himself to hope. His mother had been in this state for months, unresponsive, and the caregivers who had come before Clara had been nothing but procedural. But this young woman, this stranger, was different. He felt it in his chest, a tight coil of awe and disbelief. Could someone so ordinary hold such power? Could a single voice pierce through the fog of unresponsiveness and awaken a soul? The clock ticked forward, the soft rhythm of the music box filling the space. Clara's voice wavered, trembling with a raw honesty that only those who truly give of themselves can achieve. She recounted moments of her own life, the nights she had stayed awake caring for her ailing mother, the days she had walked the city streets with little to eat, and the fleeting, beautiful moments that reminded her why kindness mattered. As she spoke, Clara noticed Evelyn's fingers twitch again, this time slightly stronger, curling toward the small music box on the bedside table. Clara gasped softly, barely daring to breathe. "Mrs. Hartwell, are you trying to tell me something?" she whispered. Her heart pounded. Could it be? Was the unthinkable actually happening? Victor's hands trembled at his sides. His mother's subtle movements were enough to draw a lump to his throat, a crack in his carefully constructed armor of billionaire indifference. He wanted to intervene, to step forward, but he knew instinctively that this was not his place. This was Clara's moment, her sacred vigil. He remained still, absorbing every detail, silently rooting for her success. Clara continued through the night, alternating between song and soft conversation, weaving memories and stories into a tapestry of comfort and hope. She spoke of mundane things, like the mischief of squirrels outside the window and the aroma of freshly baked bread at a corner cafe. And through it all, Evelyn responded subtly, a twitch here, a sigh there, a slow shift of her eyes beneath closed lids. By the early morning, Clara's shift was nearing its end, but neither she nor Victor had noticed the passage of time. Exhaustion tugged at Clara, yet she remained seated, attentive, unwilling to break the fragile thread of connection she had established. Finally, she leaned back and whispered, "Rest now, Mrs. Hartwell. I'll be back tomorrow. I promise." She reached to close the music box, the final note lingering like a gentle caress in the room. Evelyn's fingers twitched one last time, curling slightly around the edge of the box, as though trying to hold on to the sound. Victor exhaled quietly, a mixture of relief, awe, and wonder. He realized he had witnessed something extraordinary. Not wealth, not influence, not power, but something far more profound. A human soul awakening to the presence of genuine care. He made a silent vow that he would protect this young caregiver, that he would ensure her efforts were acknowledged, and that no one would diminish the miracle he had just seen unfold. Clara left the room quietly, slipping into the soft morning drizzle outside. Her uniform was damp with condensation, her shoes muddy from the walk across the courtyard, yet she felt a lightness in her chest she had not experienced in months. Somewhere inside, she knew that tonight had been different. Something had shifted. Something miraculous had begun. And in that quiet, lingering tension, both lives were poised on the edge of transformation. Clara's life, her calling, and Evelyn's path toward awakening. And Victor's heart had been changed too, though he would not admit it just yet. He had seen something that money could not buy. A bridge built from the simplest human truths, compassion, empathy, and the unwavering belief in the power of connection. The sun had barely breached the horizon, and St. Grace Hospital was already stirring with the faint hum of morning activity. Clara Monroe tightened the buttons on her uniform and adjusted her stethoscope around her neck, the familiar weight grounding her. Today felt different. Her gut buzzed with anticipation, a fluttering mix of hope and nerves. As she walked down the long, polished corridor toward room 21, she could already hear the quiet beeps of monitors, the low hum of machines, an almost hypnotic cadence that marked the rhythm of life and its fragility. Evelyn Hartwell lay motionless, pale in the morning light, yet something in the air felt charged, almost electric. Clara's hand brushed the edge of the doorframe, her fingers lingering as she peered in, catching the faint rise and fall of Evelyn's chest. "Good morning, Mrs. Hartwell," she whispered, her voice soft yet firm, as if addressing a delicate secret. The old woman did not stir, but Clara noticed something unusual, a slight tightening of her jaw, almost imperceptible. Clara's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? After weeks of stillness, a response, no matter how small, felt monumental. From the hallway, Victor Hartwell lingered, hidden in the shadow of a pillar. He had arrived before the staff had fully settled into the morning routine, his eyes fixed on the scene. He didn't need to see much. The small details, the slight twitch of a finger, the subtle shift in Evelyn's expression, told him everything. His chest tightened, a combination of fear and awe, as if he were witnessing something sacred. Clara moved closer, adjusting Evelyn's blanket and checking her vitals with practiced care. Her hands were steady, even as her pulse raced. She placed the small music box on the bedside table and wound it carefully. The first faint notes of Moon River filled the room, curling through the sterile air like a gentle caress. Clara hummed along softly, her voice blending with the music, each note carrying her empathy, her hope, her quiet conviction that Evelyn could hear more than she appeared to. Minutes passed. Clara spoke in whispers, recounting memories of her own life, the nights she had stayed awake with her mother, the small joys she had found in a city too often harsh and uncaring. She told Evelyn about the stray cat she had rescued last week, about the coffee that tasted bitter but warmed her hands, about the books she had read in tiny, stolen moments. Her words were ordinary, yet in the context of the room, they felt sacred, like threads weaving a tapestry of connection. Victor's hands fidgeted at his sides, gripping the railing of the hallway. He couldn't move closer. He knew instinctively that Clara's presence was pivotal, that any intrusion could disrupt the fragile bridge she was building. Yet he longed to step forward, to touch his mother's hand, to see her eyes open, to confirm that what he feared was not permanent. Then, it happened. A subtle twitch, almost imperceptible, passed through Evelyn's left hand. Her fingers curled slightly, brushing against the edge of the music box. Clara froze, her breath catching in her throat. She leaned closer, whispering, "Mrs. Hartwell, are you trying to tell me something?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Even the machines paused in their rhythm, or so it seemed, waiting for the next moment of magic. Another twitch, slightly stronger, this time accompanied by the faintest shift in Evelyn's eyelids. Clara's heart raced. Could this truly be happening? Victor's eyes widened. He pressed his palm to the glass as if that small barrier could contain his emotions. He wanted to scream, to cry, to leap forward, but he remained frozen, captivated. He had never seen anyone care like this. Not a doctor, not a nurse, not anyone. Clara's devotion was raw, personal, and unyielding. Clara continued through the day, alternating between music, soft speech, and quiet observation. She documented every minute, every subtle change, a twitch, a shift, a tightening of a muscle. She spoke to Evelyn about the little things that made life worth living, reminding her of the smell of fresh bread, the warmth of sun on skin, the simple joy of laughter. And with each word, each note, Evelyn responded, ever so slightly, as if the song had awoken a hidden spark within her. By midday, Clara noticed more pronounced signs. Evelyn's fingers flexed more deliberately, her eyes moved beneath closed lids, and a faint sigh escaped her lips. Clara's hands shook with excitement, but she maintained her composure, knowing that this was delicate work, a dance between hope and reality. Victor, unable to restrain himself any longer, stepped closer to the door, though he stayed hidden behind the frame. His mother's awakening, as fragile and tentative as it was, stirred a cascade of memories and emotions. He recalled her laughter in the garden, the warmth of her hugs, the stories she had told him about the world. And now, seeing her respond, even faintly, to a stranger's care, he realized that wealth, power, and influence were insignificant compared to the force of genuine human kindness. Hours turned into evening. Clara was exhausted, yet she refused to leave Evelyn's side. She gently adjusted her position, sang a few soft notes, and whispered encouragement. "You are safe, Mrs. Hartwell. You are not alone. We are with you." Evelyn's eyes twitched again, and for the first time, a single, clear tear slid down her cheek. Clara gasped softly, careful not to startle her. The music box continued its soft melody, a thread connecting the present to memories long forgotten, to moments of love, care, and human connection. Victor, hidden in the hallway, felt a lump rise in his throat. He had witnessed the impossible, his mother, unresponsive for months, responding ever so slightly to the gentle care of a young woman he barely knew. A surge of gratitude, awe, and something he could not name flooded him. Clara, sensing the shift, continued her gentle vigil into the night. She whispered stories, sang lullabies, and played the music box repeatedly. Evelyn's fingers curled around the edge of the table, then relaxed, then curled again. A rhythm, a conversation without words. Finally, as midnight approached, Clara whispered, "Rest now. I'll be back tomorrow." She turned to leave, exhausted, her body aching but her spirit alight with hope. Evelyn's fingers twitched one last time, brushing against the music box as if to hold on to the sound, the connection, the care. Victor exhaled quietly, a mixture of relief, awe, and wonder. He realized he had witnessed something extraordinary. Not wealth, not influence, not power, but something far more profound, a human soul awakening to the presence of genuine care. As Clara stepped into the corridor, the first rays of dawn touched the hospital's glass facade. She paused, looking back at Evelyn, feeling an unspoken bond, a silent promise that she would return, that the miracle unfolding would not end tonight. Victor remained transfixed, knowing that the course of their lives had subtly shifted. He had seen something that money could not buy, a bridge built from the simplest human truths, compassion, empathy, and the unwavering belief in the power of connection. And somewhere deep within the hum of the hospital, a single thought echoed. This was only the beginning. The day after Evelyn's first tentative responses, St. Grace Hospital buzzed with quiet curiosity. Whispers echoed down the corridors, low voices speculating on the sudden changes in room 21.
"Did you see it?"
One nurse asked another.
"Mrs. Hartwell. She moved, just a finger. But still."
Clara Monroe entered the ward with the same calm determination as always, though her stomach knotted slightly with unease. After weeks of relentless care, she had learned not to expect miracles overnight, yet the tiny movements from Evelyn had set her heart alight with hope. Her music box rested in her bag like a talisman, a fragile reminder that every note mattered. Evelyn lay in her bed, eyes closed, pale but serene. Clara approached and adjusted her pillow gently. She placed the music box on the bedside table, winding it with a careful twist. Moon River began its soft, comforting melody. Clara hummed along, low and trembling, weaving stories of sunlight on her mother's balcony, the taste of fresh bread, and the stray cat that had adopted her the previous week. Through the glass door, Victor Hartwell watched, leaning lightly against the wall. He had stayed away most of the morning, giving Clara the space she needed. But each note, each whisper seemed to pull him closer, a magnetic force of curiosity, awe, and something deeper he hadn't anticipated. His mother's faint reactions, the twitch of a finger, the shifting of an eyelid, had already begun to change him in ways he could not articulate. Clara noticed the subtle movements first. Evelyn's fingers flexed more deliberately, and a small shiver passed through her arm as if she were acknowledging Clara's presence. A thrill ran through Clara, but she remained composed. She leaned closer, whispering,
Mrs. Hartwell, you can do this. You are not alone.
Victor's jaw tightened. He wanted to step inside, to see her face, to confirm that she truly heard him. But he held back, recognizing that Clara's patience and dedication were part of the fragile miracle unfolding before him. He marveled at the way she seemed to communicate directly with his mother's soul, bypassing the physical barriers that had kept Evelyn trapped in silence for months. The hospital staff began to notice too. Dr. Serena Lang, head of the neurology ward, stopped outside the room to observe, her brows knitted.
Clara, have you noticed anything unusual this morning? She asked softly.
Clara shook her head, though her eyes gleamed.
Just the same as yesterday, Doctor. Tiny movements, but consistent. Nothing dramatic yet, but it feels significant.
Dr. Lang's eyes narrowed as she considered this. Significant or coincidental? We've seen involuntary spasms before. We have to be careful not to jump to conclusions. Clara nodded, suppressing a flush of frustration. She had learned that faith and persistence often went unrecognized in clinical settings, but she also knew that miracles, no matter how small, couldn't be measured solely by scientific parameters. Meanwhile, Victor couldn't stay away. He returned that afternoon, slipping into the hallway with careful stealth. He had spent the morning reviewing surveillance footage and notes from Clara's shifts, trying to understand the pattern of her interactions with his mother. The more he watched, the more he realized that this wasn't merely professional diligence, it was devotion, pure and unselfish. As evening approached, Clara's routine became almost ritualistic. She checked the IV lines, adjusted the blankets, and wound the music box once more. Her voice trembled slightly as she began to hum the familiar tune, sharing memories, hopes, and gentle reassurances. Evelyn's fingers moved again, this time brushing against the corner of the music box. The action was small, but deliberate, a message without words. Victor held his breath. He realized he was witnessing not just a physical recovery, but a bridge forming between the living and the silent world his mother had inhabited for months. Each twitch, each subtle reaction, was a thread weaving the story of hope, patience, and human connection. But the hospital corridors carried more than whispers of curiosity. Shadows of doubt began to creep in. Some staff members had noticed Clara's frequent one-on-one attention and whispered concerns.
Is she crossing boundaries?
One nurse murmured.
Why does she spend so much time here when other patients need her too?
The murmurs reached the administrative ears faster than Clara could anticipate. By late afternoon, Dr. Lang called her into the office. The neurologist's expression was grave.
Clara, I need to discuss something with you, she began, folding her hands across the desk. There have been concerns about your conduct in room 21.
Clara's stomach dropped.
Concerns?
She echoed, trying to keep her voice steady.
Yes,
Dr. Lang said carefully.
Some staff members feel that your involvement with Mrs. Hartwell is too personal, that you might be developing a relationship that crosses professional boundaries.
Clara blinked, incredulous.
I'm just doing my job. I've never crossed any boundaries. I'm trying to help her respond.
Dr. Lang's gaze softened slightly, but the weight of protocol was clear. I know your intentions are pure, Clara. I see your dedication. But the board requires documentation and a review. You may be asked to step back while this is investigated. The words felt like a punch to the gut. Clara's dedication, her tireless nights, Her unwavering belief in the power of care suddenly called into question. She left the office feeling the walls of the hospital closing in, each corridor longer, colder, more oppressive than before. Victor, witnessing this from a distance, felt a surge of anger. His mother's potential recovery was being jeopardized, not by illness, but by skepticism, jealousy, and bureaucratic caution. He realized that he could not remain a silent observer any longer. That evening, Clara returned to her small apartment, her mind heavy with doubt and fear. She sat by the window, staring at the rain as it streaked across the glass. Her phone buzzed intermittently, but she ignored it, afraid of another message that might question her integrity or dismiss her efforts as folly. Victor, meanwhile, worked behind the scenes. He traced emails, monitored internal communications, and quietly documented the progression of Evelyn's responses. Every twitch, every subtle shift, he captured, knowing that evidence might soon be necessary to protect the young woman who had become the lifeline of his mother's awakening. 3 nights later, Clara returned to room 21 despite the looming threat of investigation. She approached Evelyn's bed with renewed resolve. She would not abandon this fragile miracle, not now, not ever. She wound the music box, and as the first notes filled the room, she whispered, "We're not done yet. You can do this, Mrs. Hartwell. I believe in you." Victor watched from the shadows, more determined than ever. He knew the world could not yet understand what was happening in this room, the bridge of care, trust, and humanity being built note by note. And he understood, perhaps for the first time, that true power lay not in wealth or status, but in the quiet, unwavering ability to touch another life. Minutes stretched into hours. Evelyn's fingers moved again, more decisively this time. Her eyes fluttered beneath closed lids, the faintest recognition glimmering in their depth. Clara's heart raced. She whispered softly, "You're stronger than you know. Keep fighting." The night grew darker outside, the hospital's fluorescent lights casting long shadows across the floor. Clara's voice grew hoarse, but she continued, coaxing, encouraging, singing. Evelyn responded, ever so slightly, as if her soul had awakened just enough to acknowledge the presence of kindness, care, and hope. Finally, as dawn approached, Clara allowed herself a small sigh of relief. Evelyn's movements, while still subtle, had become more pronounced, and for the first time, there was a tangible sense of progress. Clara left the room exhausted, yet buoyed by the knowledge that she had not given up, that the small miracles of the human heart could still manifest in the face of doubt and skepticism. Victor, standing just outside, exhaled, feeling the weight of gratitude, awe, and a strange, stirring hope. He knew that the path ahead would not be easy, that challenges still lurked in the corridors of bureaucracy and doubt. But he also knew that he had witnessed the impossible, and that Clara Monroe, through her unwavering compassion, had forever changed not just his mother's life, but his own understanding of what it meant to truly care. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of St. Grace Hospital, glinting off the polished floors and casting long reflections across the hallways. Clara Monroe arrived early, carrying her small music box in one hand and a fresh folder of patient notes in the other. Her sleep had been fitful, haunted by the previous day's conversation with Dr. Lang and the murmurings of her colleagues. Though Evelyn Hartwell's tiny signs of responsiveness had given her hope, the shadow of suspicion loomed large over her work. As she approached room 21, Clara noticed that the door was slightly ajar. A shadowy figure hovered near the entrance, tense and purposeful. It was Victor Hartwell, standing with arms crossed, his expression guarded but determined. "Victor?" Clara asked cautiously. "Are you—" "I need to speak with you," he interrupted gently but firmly. "Inside." She hesitated, weighing her options. There was a part of her that wanted to retreat, to avoid further complications, but the look in his eyes told her that he had important news. She stepped aside, allowing him to enter. Victor closed the door quietly behind him. "Clara, I've seen everything," he began, his voice low. "Not just what happens in this room, but the reports, the surveillance footage, the progression charts. You've done something extraordinary here. But some people are trying to twist it into something it isn't." Clara's heart sank. "Twist it? How?" "Some staff members, jealous or confused by your dedication, have reported you to the board," Victor explained. "They're claiming you've overstepped professional boundaries, that your involvement with my mother is inappropriate." Clara swallowed, anger and disbelief flaring simultaneously. "After everything I've done? After months of care, tireless nights, and all the progress we've made, they think I'm... what? Exploiting her?" Victor's eyes softened. "I know. It's infuriating. But I've started gathering evidence to prove the truth. Every movement, every response from your patient is documented. You haven't done anything wrong. You've saved her life." Clara exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing just slightly. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe in the possibility of justice. But she knew the road ahead would be difficult. The hospital administration could be rigid, and whispers could turn into formal complaints that might temporarily suspend her. "I'll stand by you," Victor said decisively. "We'll face this together." Clara nodded, feeling a spark of relief. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Meanwhile, inside room 21, Evelyn lay still but alert. Her fingers twitched faintly, following the sound of Clara's voice and the soft hum of the music box. Though she could not yet speak or fully open her eyes, there was an unmistakable presence in her gaze, a recognition that she was no longer alone. Clara approached her bedside, kneeling gently. She wound the music box and hummed, the familiar melody of Moon River filling the room. She whispered softly, "Mrs. Hartwell, you're safe. You're not alone. You can do this." Evelyn's hand moved, brushing against the corner of the music box again. The slight pressure was enough to make Clara's pulse race with anticipation. Each response was a reminder that miracles often began with the smallest of actions. By mid-morning, word of the miracle in room 21 began to spread beyond the ward. Dr. Lang called Clara into her office again, her expression a mixture of concern and cautious optimism. "Clara," Dr. Lang began, "the board has reviewed the initial reports. There are still questions, but your patient's responses are undeniable. There's a movement toward formal recognition, though there will be a meeting this afternoon with the board members to discuss your conduct and the care you've provided." Clara's stomach tightened. "A meeting? They'll be scrutinizing everything I've done?" "Yes," Dr. Lang replied. "But remember, your documentation is thorough, and Victor's support adds credibility. Stand firm in the truth. You've earned it." As the afternoon approached, Clara prepared herself meticulously. She reviewed her notes, rehearsed her responses, and held the music box close as a source of strength. Victor arrived shortly before the meeting, carrying a folder filled with compiled evidence. Video footage, detailed logs of Evelyn's progress, and medical charts meticulously annotated to highlight every small miracle she had coaxed from her patient. In the boardroom, the atmosphere was tense. Hospital executives, legal advisors, and senior staff sat along the long, polished table. At the head sat the chairwoman, her expression stern but attentive. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. Nathan Sterling, a board member known for his sharp critiques and relentless skepticism, leaned forward. "Miss Monroe," he began, "the reports suggest you've developed an unusually personal relationship with your patient. Can you explain your approach and justify your methods within professional standards?" Clara held her ground.
I understand the concern, sir. My approach has always been professional, grounded in medical standards and patient care protocols. But beyond that, every interaction is designed to stimulate my patient's cognitive and emotional responses. Music, conversation, touch. These are evidence-based interventions that can awaken patients from long-term comas. She handed out her detailed notes and highlighted Evelyn's progress. Over the past weeks, I have documented every movement, every response to stimuli. These are not random spasms. They correspond directly to targeted care interventions, including music therapy and personalized engagement. Victor stood, presenting the compiled evidence. The data confirms Clara's account. Each documented movement aligns with her care schedule. Her actions have been instrumental in Mrs. Hartwell's progress. Any suggestion otherwise is unfounded. The board members reviewed the evidence silently. Whispers filled the room as they exchanged glances. Nathan Sterling's expression shifted from skepticism to begrudging acknowledgement. After a tense pause, the chairwoman spoke. Miss Monroe, Mr. Hartwell, the evidence is compelling. It appears that Clara Monroe's care has not only adhered to professional standards, but has resulted in measurable improvement in a patient who had been unresponsive for months. Any allegations to the contrary are hereby dismissed. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. The relief was overwhelming, a weight lifting from her shoulders after weeks of doubt, fear, and sleepless nights. Victor stepped closer, offering a supportive smile. You've earned every recognition coming your way, he said quietly. The boardroom erupted into muted applause. Clara nodded, grateful for the acknowledgement, but aware that the true reward lay not in accolades, but in the progress of Evelyn herself. Back in room 21, Clara returned to Evelyn's bedside. She wound the music box and hummed, the melody flowing like a river of hope. Evelyn's hand moved again, stronger and more deliberate this time. Clara gently guided it, offering words of encouragement and affirmation. Each small victory was a testament to resilience, patience, and unwavering dedication. Victor, watching from the doorway, felt a profound respect for Clara. Her compassion had not only facilitated his mother's recovery, but had also restored his faith in human kindness. The experience left him introspective, realizing that wealth and power were secondary to the impact of genuine care and dedication. Days passed, and Evelyn's recovery continued at a remarkable pace. Each morning, Clara arrived with new stories, new melodies, and fresh encouragement. Evelyn's eyes began to open, her responses more intentional, her voice weak but emerging. The bond between caregiver and patient deepened, a testament to the transformative power of empathy. Finally, one afternoon, Evelyn spoke her first words in months. Music, she whispered, her voice frail but unmistakable. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Yes, Mrs. Hartwell, the music brought you back. You're here now. Victor entered the room at that moment, witnessing the culmination of weeks of dedication. He stepped forward, voice choked with emotion. Mom, you're awake. You're really awake. Evelyn's eyes focused on him, a flicker of recognition and love shining through. Victor, thank you for believing, she murmured. The room filled with an almost tangible sense of triumph, a culmination of hope, patience, and unwavering human connection. Clara's dedication had not only restored life and voice to a patient, but had changed the lives of those who witnessed the miracle. In the quiet that followed, Clara and Victor shared a moment of understanding, a recognition that true heroism often manifests in small, quiet acts, unseen by the world, but monumental in impact. The journey had been arduous, filled with doubt, suspicion, and fear, but the ultimate reward was beyond measure, the restoration of life, hope, and trust. The city outside St. Grace Hospital buzzed with a quiet excitement that seemed almost intangible, but those inside the walls knew the cause.
The miracle of Room 21, the awakening of Evelyn Hartwell, had begun to ripple far beyond the hospital corridors. News outlets had received the official statement clearing Clara Monroe of any wrongdoing, and the story of her tireless care had begun to attract attention from local and national media. Clara arrived early that morning, carrying the music box that had become a symbol of hope and persistence. She had spent the night organizing her notes and preparing for interviews that would follow. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the enormity of what had been accomplished. She paused at the entrance of the recovery wing, taking a deep breath, and reminded herself that the focus should remain on her patient, not herself. Victor Hartwell arrived shortly after, arriving quietly yet exuding an aura of calm support. "Are you ready?" he asked softly, sensing her nerves. Clara gave a small nod. "Ready? I think so." Inside the room, Evelyn sat upright in a wheelchair, her eyes bright with awareness. She followed Clara's movements carefully, as if every gesture was a thread connecting her to life itself. The nurses assisting in her rehabilitation stepped back, allowing the two to share a moment of quiet intimacy before the day's scheduled activities began. Clara wound the music box and hummed softly, the familiar Moon River melody filling the air. Evelyn's lips moved faintly, forming words before sound could emerge. "Music," she whispered, her voice weak but certain. Clara's hand trembled as she reached out to hold Evelyn's, offering a gentle squeeze. "Yes, Evelyn. Music brought you back," Clara replied, her voice breaking with emotion. "And now, we continue together." Victor watched from the doorway, unable to suppress the swell of pride and admiration he felt for Clara. "You've changed everything for her, and for all of us," he said softly. The morning moved forward with a blend of therapy sessions, gentle exercises, and patient monitoring. Clara guided Evelyn through each activity with patience and care, narrating every movement, every step. Evelyn's progress was steady and remarkable. Her responses, once barely perceptible, were now deliberate, her words forming in careful but confident sentences. By midday, the hospital administration had convened a special meeting to formally recognize Clara's efforts. The board members, hospital executives, and senior medical staff filled the conference room, murmurs of anticipation spreading across the room. Cameras discreetly captured the gathering, as Victor had invited select media outlets to witness the recognition. The chairwoman of the hospital stood at the front, clearing her throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we recognize an extraordinary act of professional dedication and human compassion. Miss Clara Monroe has demonstrated the profound impact of personalized care, patience, and unwavering empathy. Thanks to her efforts, Evelyn Hartwell has not only shown measurable improvement, but has awakened from a long-term coma, bringing hope to her family, colleagues, and community." Clara felt her cheeks flush as the room filled with applause. Victor stepped forward, presenting a folder of documented progress. "This is not just recognition. It is proof of dedication and humanity in action," he said firmly. "Clara's work exemplifies the highest standards of caregiving and personal integrity. Any attempt to undermine her contributions is unfounded and discredited." The applause grew, more heartfelt than before, as board members nodded in acknowledgement. Clara's hands gripped the edge of the table, her heart pounding. She had expected the moment to be formal, perhaps clinical, but the genuine warmth and respect she felt from the room made her eyes sting with tears. Later that afternoon, Clara was invited to speak at a small gathering of hospital staff, patients, and family members. She stood at the podium, the music box resting gently in front of her. Taking a deep breath, she began, "I never expected recognition. I only did what any caregiver would hope to do: bring comfort, bring hope, and never give up. When Mrs. Hartwell first arrived, she could not speak, could not move.
Yet I believed she could still hear, still feel. Every gesture, every song, every word was a bridge to her soul. I am honored to witness her recovery, but the true reward is seeing her awaken and reconnect with life. As Clara spoke, Evelyn wheeled herself closer, smiling faintly. She reached for Clara's hand, and the room fell silent. "You brought me back," she whispered. The simplicity of the statement, its honesty, moved everyone present. Clara's eyes welled with tears, and she pressed her hand over Evelyn's gently. Victor, observing the scene, realized that this moment was bigger than anyone anticipated. Clara's dedication had not only restored his mother's life, but had reminded everyone in the room, and by extension the community, that human compassion could achieve what medicine alone could not. Word of Clara's story spread rapidly. Local newspapers ran detailed features, highlighting the journey of a young caregiver who had defied expectations, skepticism, and professional scrutiny to restore life and hope. Social media platforms exploded with reactions. People shared videos of Clara speaking, photographs of Evelyn's progress, and personal reflections about the importance of empathy in healthcare. Requests poured in from hospitals, foundations, and medical schools, asking Clara to share her methods, conduct workshops, and inspire a new generation of caregivers. She accepted selectively, determined to maintain the balance between her work and personal life, but her influence began to ripple outward, touching countless others. Meanwhile, Evelyn's progress continued at a remarkable pace. Under Clara's guidance, she regained mobility, speech, and cognitive functions. Her personality, once dormant and distant, emerged with warmth, humor, and gratitude. Clara's presence was a constant, providing stability, encouragement, and reassurance. Victor, witnessing these transformations, became a partner in ensuring his mother's well-being, coordinating therapy schedules, and supporting both Clara and Evelyn in practical ways. One afternoon, as Clara guided Evelyn through a gentle stretching exercise, Victor spoke quietly. "Clara, you've done more than I can express in words. You didn't just care for my mother, you reminded all of us what it means to truly see another human being. I don't know how to thank you." Clara smiled faintly, adjusting Evelyn's blanket. "No thanks are necessary, Victor. The real reward is here," she said, glancing at Evelyn's bright eyes. "Every small step she takes, every word she speaks, that's the real gift." Victor nodded, reflecting on the journey. He realized that his wealth and status had shielded him from witnessing such raw human connection. Clara's dedication and courage reminded him that influence and privilege were meaningless without compassion and action. As weeks turned into months, Clara continued her work at St. Grace Hospital, now officially recognized as a leading caregiver and patient advocate. Evelyn's recovery progressed steadily, each milestone a testament to Clara's unwavering commitment. The hospital, inspired by her methods, began integrating personalized music and emotional therapy into standard care protocols, ensuring that future patients could benefit from the approaches that had proven so transformative. One evening, after a long day of rehabilitation sessions, Clara found herself alone in the recovery wing. She wound the music box and hummed softly, letting the melody fill the quiet space. Evelyn, sitting nearby, smiled and hummed along, a small but powerful act of shared connection. Victor entered silently, observing the moment with quiet reverence. "Every day, you remind us what's possible," he said softly, his voice filled with emotion. "You've turned a hospital into a place where hope thrives and where people remember the power of compassion." Clara glanced up, tears glinting in her eyes. "I only did what anyone could do, but seeing her recover, it makes everything worth it." Victor stepped closer, placing a hand gently on hers. "No, what you've done is extraordinary. and it will be remembered for years to come. The room was filled with a quiet stillness, the soft hum of the music box blending with the steady rhythms of life returning to Evelyn. In that moment, Clara felt the full weight and beauty of her journey, the sleepless nights, the doubts, the moments of fear, all culminating in this tangible manifestation of hope, recovery, and human connection. As the months passed, Clara's story inspired countless caregivers, patients, and families. Workshops, public talks, and media coverage highlighted her approach, emphasizing the role of empathy, patience, and personalized care in healing. Evelyn continued to thrive, reconnecting with her family, engaging in hobbies she had loved before her illness, and sharing moments of joy with Clara and Victor. Finally, one crisp autumn morning, St. Grace Hospital unveiled a new wing dedicated to music and personalized patient care, named the Clara Monroe Wing in honor of the young caregiver whose dedication had forever changed the lives of Evelyn Hartwell, her family, and countless others. The ceremony was attended by hospital staff, community members, and patients who had benefited from Clara's methods. Evelyn, radiant and smiling, cut the ribbon alongside Clara and Victor, a symbolic gesture representing the triumph of human compassion over adversity. As the sun rose, casting golden light across the hospital, Clara stood near the entrance, holding her music box. She looked out at the bustling scene, families reunited, patients smiling, and staff energized. A sense of peace and fulfillment washed over her. The journey had been arduous, filled with doubt, fear, and challenge, but in the end, it had illuminated the profound truth that care, kindness, and dedication could transform lives in ways nothing else could. Victor approached, offering a warm smile. "You've changed everything," he said simply. Clara nodded, the music box humming softly in her hands. "No. We've changed everything. Together." The melody drifted through the halls, a quiet but enduring testament to hope, compassion, and the extraordinary power of a single act of dedication. And somewhere deep within the hum of the hospital, the faint echo of a song reminded everyone who heard it that kindness, above all, could heal not just the body, but the heart and soul. Clara Monroe stood near the entrance, holding her small wooden music box, now polished and gleaming in the soft sunlight. Her heart beat with a mixture of pride, humility, and a touch of nervous anticipation. For months, she had dedicated herself tirelessly to Evelyn Hartwell's recovery, guiding her through therapy, encouraging each small milestone, and providing unwavering emotional support. Yet today felt different. Today was about closure, recognition, and beginnings. Victor Hartwell approached quietly, offering a warm smile that conveyed gratitude deeper than words could express. "Are you ready?" he asked gently. Clara nodded, letting a soft smile grace her lips. "As ready as I'll ever be." The ceremony began with a series of speeches. Dr. Harris, head of neurology, addressed the crowd first. "Today we celebrate more than a new wing of our hospital. We celebrate the extraordinary power of compassion and dedication. Clara Monroe, through her unwavering care, has shown us that healing is not just about medicine. It is about humanity, patience, and the courage to see the person beneath the illness." The applause that followed was heartfelt, resonating through the hall in a way that made Clara's chest tighten. She clasped her hands together to steady herself, feeling a mixture of pride and disbelief. But it wasn't until Evelyn, now fully recovered and seated in a wheelchair, wheeled herself forward that Clara's heart truly swelled. "Clara," Evelyn said, her voice steady and warm, "you brought me back. You reminded me that even in silence, love and kindness can be heard. You've given me a second chance at life, and I will never forget it." Tears welled in Clara's eyes as she reached for Evelyn's hand. The room seemed to quiet, the weight of the moment pressing softly yet insistently upon everyone present. Clara squeezed her hand gently, her voice trembling. "It was you who fought to come back. I only helped guide the way." Victor stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on Clara's shoulder. "She's right. But your guidance, your music, your care, that is what made all the difference. You didn't just heal her. You inspired all of us. And for that, we are eternally grateful." The final part of the ceremony was the ribbon cutting for the Clara Monroe wing. Clara, Evelyn, and Victor approached the entrance together, scissors in hand. The crowd watched in anticipation, cameras poised to capture the symbolic moment. Clara took a deep breath and glanced at Victor, who nodded encouragingly. With a decisive motion, she cut the ribbon. A wave of applause and cheers swept through the hall. Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a profound sense of accomplishment that went far beyond recognition. This was not about fame or accolades or public approval. This was about the lives she had touched, the hope she had restored, and the bonds she had forged through music, care, and unwavering dedication. Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed and the wing settled into a quiet hum of activity, Clara found herself alone with Victor and Evelyn in a small, sunlit lounge within the wing. Evelyn, now walking with the aid of a cane, turned to Clara with a smile. "Clara, you've given me more than life. You've given me joy, dignity, and the belief that every day is worth living." Clara's eyes glistened. "And you've given me something I never expected. Proof that one person's persistence, kindness, and care can truly change the world. Thank you for trusting me." Victor lingered nearby, his gaze steady and soft. "Clara, there's something I need to say." He paused, as if measuring the weight of his words against the quiet intimacy of the moment. "You didn't just heal my mother. You've healed parts of my life I didn't even realize were broken. Your courage, your compassion, your unwavering dedication, they've changed me, and I can't imagine a future without you in it." Clara's breath caught, her heart pounding in a way that matched the rhythm of the music box she held. "Victor, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied gently. "Just let me show you." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small silver ring, shaped like a delicate musical note. The familiar motif reflected the sunlight, glinting as it caught Clara's gaze. "Clara Monroe," Victor said softly. "Your song awakened my mother, inspired our community, and awakened my heart. Will you let me walk beside you? In life, in hope, and in love." Tears streamed down Clara's face as she nodded, speechless. The room seemed to fill with a gentle melody, the music box in her hands humming softly as if echoing the promise of the moment. Victor gently placed the ring on her finger, their hands lingering together, bridging a connection born from trust, courage, and shared purpose. Over the following weeks, Clara and Victor's bond deepened. They worked together to ensure the Clara Monroe wing thrived, integrating music therapy, personalized patient care, and emotional support into daily routines. Families and patients found solace in the compassionate environment, and staff members were inspired to approach care with renewed empathy. Evelyn continued to regain her strength, walking longer distances, speaking with confidence, and engaging in creative activities she had loved before her illness. Clara remained a constant presence, guiding her with gentle encouragement while maintaining the professionalism and warmth that had defined her approach from the very beginning. One afternoon, as the golden afternoon light spilled through the windows, Clara and Victor sat on a bench outside the hospital, the city skyline stretching before them. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of falling leaves and the quiet promise of new beginnings. "I never imagined my life would take this turn," Clara said softly, winding the music box.
The familiar melody filled the air, drifting across the courtyard. Victor smiled, taking her hand. Neither did I. But sometimes, life's most extraordinary changes come from moments we cannot predict. Moments of courage, compassion, and the willingness to care for others. You've taught me that, Clara. You've changed more than one life. You've changed countless lives, including mine. Clara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the sunlight, the joy, and the depth of all they had endured together. I only followed my heart, and it led me here, to hope, to love, and to a life worth living. Victor leaned closer, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. And it's just the beginning. Together, we'll continue to bring hope to those who need it, to show that compassion can change the world, one heart at a time. Months turned into years, and the Clara Monroe wing became a beacon of hope and innovation in patient care. The story of Clara Monroe, her music and her dedication was told and retold, inspiring countless caregivers and families to approach healing with empathy and patience. Evelyn flourished, her life full of laughter, love, and newfound purpose. Clara and Victor, united in both passion and purpose, continued to advance compassionate care, their bond a living testament to the extraordinary power of kindness. And through it all, the music box played softly, a gentle reminder that sometimes the smallest acts, a song, a whisper, a touch, can awaken hearts, restore lives, and create legacies that endure far beyond a single moment. In the quiet moments when the world seemed still, Clara would wind the music box and hum along, her voice carrying the promise of hope and love. And somewhere deep within the hum of the hospital, the faint echo of a song whispered once more, reminding everyone who heard it that compassion, courage, and love are forces more powerful than illness, fear, or time. The young caregiver had sung to an elderly woman, unaware of the billionaire son watching. Yet in that simple act, lives were transformed, hearts were awakened, and a legacy of hope, justice, and love was born, forever changing not just her life, but the lives of all those touched by her song.